Warning: some contents may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. I live in Italy, and I have had some bad experiences with old people, even with younger people. When I was 13, I was waiting alone for my friends in front of a supermarket in my small city while they were buying some food inside. An old man came up to me and said, "Do you want to sleep with me? I'll pay you well." I was literally shocked, so I said, "What?" And he repeated what he told me. Later on, I figured out that he was asking these questions and harassing most of the girls from my city. In the end, I haven't seen him since that year, around 2019 to 2020. Another one of the innumerable encounters happened to me some weeks ago. I was just walking through the park of my city, searching for a bench that wasn't occupied with people and not under the sun. Finally, I found one. I sat down and took my book and I started reading it. But then, a man 50 to 60 years old, I guess if not older, sat down beside me. At that point, I was ready for standing up and walking away, and as I am putting the book back in my purse, the man placed his full hand on the higher place of my thigh. I looked him dead in the eyes and I said, "You're seriously messed up." And then I walked away. After 20 minutes, in which I was in the other side of the park, my mother arrived. We started searching for that disgusting man, but then we couldn't find him anywhere. I have so much stuff like this to tell, and it's not normal. Most of the times I go out, I literally fear for my life, or I'm scared that something bad will happen to me. The world is full of people like this. Also, excuse me if I've made any mistakes in writing. English is not my first language. I recently came across this subreddit, and I thought that I would share a somewhat unsettling encounter that I had at a rest stop. This happened several months ago while I, a male, was moving cross-country to Las Vegas. I arrived the night before I was supposed to check in and get the keys to my new apartment. I didn't feel it was necessary to get a hotel room, so I decided to sleep for a few hours at a pilot travel stop and then head to my apartment in the morning. There was a parking area to the side of the building with 3 or 4 rows of spaces. The furthest row was near a fence-off area. Most of the spots were filled with trucks and vans, likely other drivers who had also stopped to rest. I parked my car in a space closest to the main building since it had the most light, and I decided to get some rest. I had been asleep in the driver's seat for about an hour when I was suddenly startled awake by the sound of someone walking near my door. I looked over and I saw a guy starting to walk away. But then he turned around, saw that I was awake and looking at him, gave a little wave, and then started walking back toward my car. He said, "Hey man, sorry to wake you up, but my car won't start. I was wondering if you could give me a jump." I was half awake and for some reason just kind of mumbled, Sure, I guess." And he replied, "Great, follow me around." This part was clearly a stupid decision, but I'll continue nonetheless. So I started my car and I drove around to where he was walking. He led me to the far back row of the parking area in the back corner near the fence. At first, I was starting to realize how shady the situation felt. I stopped my car about halfway down the road thinking, "Just back up and then drive off. This is dangerous." But he saw that I had stopped and started waving at me to pull forward. For some stupid reason, I did, but I kept my windows up and the doors locked, and I also grabbed my phone and pepper spray from my carry bag on the passenger seat. As I pulled up, I saw an old, beat-up RV parked next to an even more beat-up pickup truck, which was filled with garbage in the bed. The truck was facing the fence with the back toward the parking row where I was. The guy was standing near the front of the truck, waving jumper cables and signaling me to pull closer. The way the truck and the RV were positioned, there were barely enough space for a car to squeeze between them. Suddenly, a woman stepped out of the RV and began signaling for me to pull up as well. At this point, I was completely suspicious and freaked out. I shouted at the window, "No, I'm not pulling in there. If the cables can't reach, then you'll have to find someone else." She got angry and started screaming at me to pull up, and then the guy ran over to her, yelling at her to shut up and then get back inside the RV. He then walked over to the driver's side of my car and said, "Just pull up closer to the truck so I can hook the cables up and we'll be done." By that point, everything about the situation felt off, and I said, "No, I'm not going to be able to help with this." He gave me an irritated look and said, "Seriously? I've got to get to my mother's house. She's not feeling too well, you know." I replied, "I need to go," and I started backing out of the parking area to leave the station. As I was pulling away, I saw the woman come back out of the RV and start shouting at the man, pointing toward my car. I couldn't tell what she was saying, but I got out of there quickly, and I found another location closer to the city to spend the rest of the night. I don't know if they genuinely needed help or if it was a setup for something more dangerous, but I immediately regretted the decisions I made. It was clear that the situation could have taken a very bad turn. This happened years ago, after I had just turned 17. Me and a couple of my friends went to Tenerife and stayed in my friend's parents' timeshare. The timeshare complex was amazing. There was a number of pools, restaurants, and shops, everything you could need, but just outside the complex was pretty barren. However, me and my friends had spotted an Italian restaurant that did takeaway pizza just outside the complex, so we decided to head out during the day to pick up a menu for later in the evening. It was super eerie outside the complex as there wasn't a soul around, and it was so quiet that you could have heard a pin drop. We made it to the restaurant, which at this point was all closed up, but as we looked at the menu outside, we heard someone shouting, "Animal park! Water park!" When we turned around, we see a guy, guessing in his mid-40s, sitting in a beat-up old Nissan Micra, waving leaflets out of his window. I swear, I hadn't seen the car earlier when we walked up to the restaurant. Kind of ashamed to admit this, but we had been wanting to check out the animal and water parks, so we dashed over ready to grab the leaflets to find out more. When we got up to the car though, we looked at the guy and realized that he was butt naked except for his socks. I turned around and I told my friend to start walking in the opposite direction that the car was facing. We started quickly walking away, but then the guy started up the engine and slowly turned the car around and started following us. He drove slowly next to us, still saying "Animal Park, Water Park," when suddenly he stopped the car and then started to get out. I shouted at my friend to start running, and I just remember turning around and telling him to fuck off. I'm not sure if he even followed us, but we ran until we got inside the complex, and once we realized that we were safe and he wasn't behind us, we just collapsed on the ground and started laughing, probably because we were just kids. But looking back on it now though, it's terrifying. I am a music student at a small town university in Canada. Since I was staying the summer and not going back home, I asked the director of my program for a key to a rehearsal room so that I could stay over the summer and have a designated practice space. The building is very old, musty, and has so many hallways, open spaces, practice or green rooms, stairwells, and many more. It sits near a walking trail in the woods, on the other side of a marsh, and then a large basin that leads into the ocean. I had classes in this building during my first term, and I have spent a lot of time in there. I never once felt uneasy while spending time alone in the building, whether during the day or at night. Sometimes, I would stay and play music until 1 or 2 in the morning. I would only ever see security during their 11 p.m. patrol. I never had an issue, and they always announced their presence if knocking or coming around a corner where they were out of sight. The other night, I was in this large room that I cleaned and converted into a sort of studio/rehearsal space. It used to be a wood shop for the theater students. There are 2 ways in, through a main, large double door that leads into the common area, fire exit, main auditorium, and theater, and the other entrance is through the percussion room door, which is then secured by another door. Basically, when I'm in there, I'm locked in from both ends. The other night while I was practicing, I heard a door open from out in the hallway, and I just assumed that it was another of the 5-ish students who are also staying over the summer. No big deal. A little while after that, I heard some of the music students returning their gear from a show that they played that evening. No big deal too. One of them even came and knocked and announced themselves, just wanting to say hello, knowing that I was in that big room rehearsing because I had a lamp on. A few hours after that, probably around 1:30 a.m., I started to wind down and then pack things up. I'm not supposed to be in there that late, but I have an important show coming up, and I have been practicing hard. I'm sitting down near the large double door, and I can hear footsteps on the other side. I sort of freeze up, stop what I'm doing, just to listen. There is a square hole in the wall, probably a 1.5 by 1.5, where I assume an exhaust vent used to be installed to remove sawdust and all that when the theater students would be building props. While cleaning the room and turning it into my rehearsal space, I put a thin piece of plastic over this hole. Not for any reason, I just found it while cleaning, and I was like, that would fit right in the hole. So I put it there. As I am sitting in the chair, continue to quietly listen, staring at the door, I literally see someone bend down and look into the hole, into the practice room, and at me, and then quickly straighten back up and out of sight. The hole is probably at thigh height. I was so focused on the door and looking at the crack underneath that I only caught this person out of the corner of my eye, and then they quickly moved away from it, so I barely saw who it was, but they were wearing brown and had black hair. No other student matches that description, and security would not do that at all. They are pretty hard-ass and always announce themselves, demand that I open up, show student ID, and etc., especially not at 1:30 a.m. They would have for sure kicked me out and probably have been pissed if I was there at that time. I froze, not knowing what to do. I nervously just asked, "Hello? Who's that?" And nobody answered. I felt so creeped out and spooked that I just sat there in absolute silence, waiting for a sound or someone to be like, "Oh, hey, it's just me. I'm fucking around with you." But nothing. I literally sat there for 5 to 10 minutes, looking around quietly, goosebumps, and just spooked. And after 5 to 10 minutes, I could hear the sound of someone walking away towards the front of the building, like the sound of jeans rubbing together as they were walking and the jacket and all that. I packed up so fast, leaving most of my music stuff, and I just exited through the main door and out the fire exit as fast as possible. Luckily, I live a 5-minute walk away, but I was checking over my shoulder to make sure that nobody was following me. I'm sure it wasn't someone dangerous, but it really freaked me out, and I know all the music students who are staying over the summer, they for sure would have said hi or something. Security would have kicked me out 100%. And my only worry is that it was someone doing sneaky shit or trying to steal something from the school, or something worse. Security usually comes around at 11 p.m. every night and locks all the doors. The main doors are open all day and over the summer, and anybody can just walk into the theater and wander around. I'm worried that someone was trying to sleep in there overnight and wandered in at night, found a secluded room in some long hallway, and was trying to hide out. And then they heard music late at night and came down to explore. I really don't know. It spooked me so bad that I'm now afraid to stay late and practice. I should bring it up to security so that they are a little more thorough. I'm not saying that all squatters are bad or dangerous. It was just a very eerie and unexpected creepy encounter. This is 100% true. Edit. I went to school yesterday in the afternoon and all the doors were locked. I called security and then immediately asked me what I was doing there suspiciously, perhaps questioning if I was a student or not. I had to go to the security with an ID and get my key card updated. They didn't mention anything, but I have a hunch that they did catch someone in there. And now the doors are locked all the time. Hello Reddit. This is my first post, so please be patient with me. I have been debating whether or not I should share my story, and so far, the latter has been beat out. As I have grown older, I've been reflecting on this moment, and I am curious about your thoughts. I am a writer, so some of the details may seem suspiciously descriptive, as if they were written by AI, but it's just me. This happened about 7 or so years ago. My family and I visited a lake in a state far away from our own for our first and last family reunion. Safe to say that the lack of AC during the hot summer month of July, different conflicting personalities, and 3 families in one Airbnb caused a lot of tension, and it all blew up on the 4th of July. After midnight, my mom got fed up and then took me with her to stay at the hotel. I'm a female and I was 10 at that time, and I was also sick. My sibling, 8, and my dad stayed at the house since they were enjoying themselves. We flew to the state, so we did not have a car, and even if we did, it most likely would have been blocked in by other family members' cars. After much squabbling about our means of transportation, my grandparents, who lived in the same state as us, let my mom drive their car to go stay at an air-conditioned hotel away from the family drama. My mom and I drove through the dark, empty streets for a while before we came across a motel. It's a familiar chain motel that we recognize, and it was on the side of the road. Since it was very late and my mom had a sick kid in the car, she settled in staying there for the night. Pulling into the circular drive, we saw movement beneath the trees of an island in the middle of the asphalt. As my mom pulled into a driving spot, a man dressed in all camo, smoking a cigarette, emerged from the shadows of the island, and once we got out of the car, he asked, "Do y'all want a room?" To which my mom responded yes, because why else would we be at a motel? It was a little odd that this man, who I assumed to be an employee, was wearing full camo and not a uniform. We walked into a little lobby, which was really just a small room with a computer, a front desk, and a few armchairs. He walked behind the desk, clacking away on the computer, as my mom described the room that we would like. A queen bed, a non-smoke room. The man nodded, commenting, "Are you two alone?" And I cannot remember if my mom responded, but handed us the key to the room. Not a card like I was used to, but a literal keychain. I thought it was odd, but then brushed it off as a regional difference. This town doesn't get much traffic as the other popular cities around, so maybe they don't have the budget or need for keycards. But then, it got unsettling. He tried to make small talk, asking about what we were doing here, how we were liking the fireworks, and etc. And then he led us to our room on the first floor. Okay, that's not too bad, right? But then he opened our door and then led us into the room while showing us around. The moment that he opened up the room, the sickening stench of smoke hit us. Even though we specifically asked for a non-smoke room, he started twisting the knob to the air conditioning, turned on the bathroom light, and opening the closet door, showing us where everything was. This was a tiny room, big enough for one bed, a thin closet in the wall, and two little nightstands, so the tour was really unnecessary. My mom stood outside of the room, arms crossed and almost on guard. I, being exhausted, stepped into the room, holding my stuffy and blanket, ready to knock out and just go to bed. As the man walked into the bathroom, my mom finally spoke up. She called my name and said, "Come here." Her tone was stern, one that sounded like the pursed lip warning many kids get when they are in trouble. But this one held a dangerous edge to it. The man came back out and was milling around the room when she repeated herself under her breath. I eventually gave in, rolling my eyes in annoyance as I left the room. She grabbed me the second that I crossed the threshold and moved me behind her. We walked back to the lobby to find a new room that was truly non-smoke, and my mom made sure to stay between us. While in the lobby, he made a comment that broke the camel's back. "You two are sure far away from home." As he rang us up, holding onto my mom's credit card as she looked at her phone. Even though I was young, this comment made my stomach twist, but I couldn't understand why. Suddenly, the lobby filled with ringing, the tune of my mom's ringtone echoing off the pale walls. "Oh, 1 minute please, it's my husband," she said, holding up a finger to me as I prodded at her. The conversation went like this. "Hello? Hi, honey. What was that?" "Mom, who is it? Why is Daddy calling?" She then shushes me. "Oh, are you with..." And then she inserts my sibling's name. "We found a place." "Oh, okay. Yeah, we will see you there. Got it. Love you." And like the annoying kid that I was practically tugging at my mom's sleeve asking her where my sibling and dad were. Mom brushed me off, gesturing for me to grab her card as she informed the man that, "Oh, my husband and my kid are down the road. They've already checked into the room, so we're just going to go meet them." I am still asking her about what was going on since I was very confused. As we made our way back to the car, I flooded her with questions, and she simply just looked forward, clasping my hand. I hopped into the back seat and we backed out, quickly leaving the drive. And in a nearly cinematic moment, my mom turns to me, finally answering my question in the most jaw-dropping manner for a 10-year-old me. I lied. I felt like my world exploded. I had always been thought about stranger danger and kidnappers, but this was a whole new territory for me, one that most women have to live through every waking moment. She filled me in as we drove, winding through the roads into town. While I was busy thinking about falling into a smoky and dingy bed, my mom was in full panic mode. Her mom instincts flared up the moment he opened our door for us, most likely trying to rationalize what was going on. And once we reached our room, it was easily accessed on the bottom floor with a key that the man most likely had a spare of, and that it did not meet our specifications, so she devised the plan. While we made our way back to the lobby, blabbing about a new room, she had been texting my dad, telling him where we were and to call her, and their conversation went like this. "Hello, hi honey, what was that?" My dad answered, "Are you okay? What's going on?" "Oh, are you with..." Then she inserts my sibling's name. "We found a place. Oh, okay, yeah. We'll see you there. Got it. Love you." And my dad just responded with, "Huh?" Cue utter confusion. Her worries were further confirmed when the man's strange and overly personal questions. The reality of the situation began to set in for me. A little part of me that was still innocent and naive to the ways of the world, cracking. In the end, we found a safer hotel further into town, also with a pool, and we stayed there for the rest of our trip, later joined by my dad and sibling. Now, on to the update that freaked me out even more. My sibling and I recently revisited the town with our grandparents for a quick family trip, and we stayed at the house on the same lake where we had the reunion. On our way to the house, our car passed the charred remains of a building, gates and a caution tape surrounding the area. My grandma pointed it out and informed me that it was the motel that my mom and I had stayed at. It had burnt down in October of 2023, and I have scoured the internet for any answers, and I have found none. The name did change from when we first went, but I was still able to find it. Let me know if you want to know the name in the comments. I feel like the fact that it mysteriously burned down adds to the unsettling experience that my mom and I had there. After looking back at this moment with new, older eyes, I am very, very glad that my mom got us out of there. She has not, that I can remember, had a sort of feeling like that one since, and I have gained even more admiration for her. I will never know what would have happened if we stayed, and to the man in the hotel, let's not meet again. I live outside of the United States. About 15 years ago, I went to visit family in the US for a family reunion, so we had to find accommodation for everyone. I stayed with my grandmother, while the others found alternative places to stay. A man who lived close to my grandmother offered to let my brother and his wife stay with him. He had a 3-bedroom house, and he lived alone, so He said that he would be happy to let them stay in the spare bedroom for free, and they happily agreed. I went with them to see what the place was like. My grandmother lived way up in the mountains, kind of in the middle of nowhere, and so did this man, who was a long-haul trucker. When we pulled up in front of his house, we all talked about how beautiful it was. I wanted to stay there too, and we wondered if he would let me stay in one of the other rooms. That all changed though when we entered the house. While the place was lovely and clean, there was a horrible stench. It stank of rotting meat and solvents with a touch of air freshener, and we could not get away from the smell. The room that they would be staying in was accessed through a sliding glass door, and the view was amazing. The smell was not, nor was the locked door that led to the rest of the house. There were 2 sturdy locks on the door and a deadbolt and a padlock. It was a bit disconcerting to note that they were there to lock something or someone in addition to keeping people out. When my brother asked about the locks on the door, the trucker said, "Oh, I have cats and I don't like them to get out. There are mountain lions and opossums and eagles around here." My brother later told me that he thought about joking like, "How big are your cats?" But he thought that that might not be a good idea. To access the kitchen, we had to go back inside, walk around to the other end of the house, and then go in another door there. While the long-haul trucker was telling my brother and my sister-in-law to feel free to use anything in the kitchen and living room, I had a look at the inner door that led into the living room. And sure enough, there was a deadbolt and padlock on it, and of course, the stink was really bad there too. Despite all of this, my brother and my sister-in-law stayed there for a week. They stayed out of the place for as long as possible, only returning there to sleep. My brother said that the guy was weird, but he didn't think that anything horrible was going on. "He probably doesn't clean up after his cats," he said. "You know, cat food smells like that when it's left out for too long." We saw the cats while we were there, so that was a possibility. But what struck me odd was the fact that the cats were out and free roaming. One was even outside. My brother and sister-in-law had no other problems during their stay there though. A couple of years later, I went back to visit my grandmother on my own. The trucker came over to her house, and after we had all talked for a while, he brought up my brother's previous visit. "I just want to say sorry for how bad the house smelled back then," he said. "And I want you to know that it's all cleaned up now." This struck me as strange because we hadn't talked about the smell at all. When I said that there was no need to apologize to me because I hadn't stayed there, he got upset. "No, it wasn't good," he said. "And I want you to see that it's all cleaned up now. You should come over and see it." I assured him that I believed that he really had cleaned up and that I didn't need to see it, but he kept insisting that I go over to see it though. My grandmother insisted on it too, so I just went with a guy to see it. He continued to insist that I see every room in his house, and he was extremely complimentary and fawning over me, and it just felt weird. His house was very clean though, and the locks were gone, but the cats were still there. Also, I should mention that this guy had also tried to entice my niece to go over to his house on another occasion. He kept telling her about his private gym and all of the equipment he had over there. He kept saying, "You can ride on my exercise bike. You can ride it as much as you want to." When I said that she was probably too little for his stationary bike because she was 8 years old and he was a large man, he said that he could just adjust it. So I said that I was interested in seeing a stationary bike that could be adjusted like that. And he said, "Oh, that's okay. You don't need to see it. My house is a mess, anyways." Then he continued to ask my niece if she wanted to play on his exercise bike. When I called her mother's attention to this, the trucker stopped asking. My grandmother passed away years ago, and while I miss her dearly, I don't miss having to deal with that guy. And here's the riddle for this video. Hey everyone, this is your creepy sister. Thank you so much for watching the video. I do hope you enjoyed it. Also, don't forget to leave a like and a comment. It really helps the channel out. A big shout out to both my channel members and Patreon members. Thank you so much for taking your support to the next level. You guys are great. And again, to everyone, stay scared because your fear feeds me.